Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have vowed to take away your Second Amendment rights through gun bans, gun confiscation, and government regulations. Now, Joe Biden is no longer hiding his real intentions, and we need you to take action now.
Whether it's a 9mm pistol or whether it's a rifle is ridiculous. I'm continuing to push to eliminate the sale of those things. But
the Biden administration is coming after your right to own any gun, and we need you to text PROTECT2A to 888-762-0221. Joe Biden has already issued executive orders. He is now demanding Congress push through radical gun legislation. You can fight back to stop Joe Biden's gun grab, but you must text PROTECT2A to 888-762-0221. Take action to protect your right to keep and bear arms. We urgently need millions of Americans to text PROTECT2A to 888-762-0221. Text PROTECT2A to 888-762-0221.
Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of the Daily Bullet. My name is Paul Lathrop. I'm the Deputy Director of New Media for the Second Amendment Foundation. Joining me today, Amanda Suffecool of Eye on the Target Radio. Also, she's a regular co-host on the Polite Society podcast with me. Amanda, thanks for joining me today.
No, thanks for having me, Paul.
Well, let's. One thing I want to lead off with, and we did this a couple days ago on the Polite Society podcast. I want to lead off with this. We played a video on the Polite Society podcast that come from the DC Project, and this is one that they put up on YouTube. But it's a very powerful video. And I want to run it here as well, if you don't mind.
No, I'd love to share it with all your viewers, all of our listeners. Yeah.
All right, we're gonna pop this up, and it's just about a minute and a half, minute 45 long. So we'll be right back right after this.
My son was shot in the head and killed at a house party with an illegal gun. After he was killed, no one spoke up for weeks. But that's part of the street life. The gun control lobbyist claims their policies will save lives and reduce violence. Well, these policies did not save my son.
A crazed drug addict broke into my home, pinned me down on the bed, punched me in my face repeatedly, and then he strangled me. I knew he was going to kill me, and I wondered what my daughter would see when she came home. Then I realized she would be his next victim, and I started fighting for my life. No, I started fighting for her life. I fought to my gun in the dresser. I pointed it straight at him, and he stopped in his tracks. If storage laws required me to lock my gun up, I never would have been able to get to my firearm in time.
My son's death was a result of a criminal with an evil heart, a sickening reality of the street life, and the criminal justice system failing to deal with a convicted felon that pulled the trigger.
My story is one of the estimated 2 million lives saved by guns each year. I was, and I always will be, my own first responder, and I will raise my children to be the same for themselves. My name is Mary Forges, and my firearm saved my life.
My name is Lucretia Hughes, and I am proud to be a part of the DC Project, where we believe education, not legislation, is how we will save lives.
If you survived a tragedy and want to make a difference, share your story with the DC Project.
If you are a survivor of a violent attack and you need a community who supports you and your right to protect yourself, please consider joining or supporting the DC Project, Women for Gun Rights, at dcproject.info.
Wow, that's a pretty powerful video, and I got to say, Mary and Lucretia, two amazing stories that really strike home in that video.
They really do. And that's one of the things that the DC Project has done is gather these women who, in their own right, in their own state, have been fighting for gun rights or for the ability to protect themselves or for the ability to protect their family. And they've connected them together in kind of a network within the DC Project so that you get to hear the stories. And it's not just being told, in Mary's home state of Connecticut and in Lucretia's home state of Georgia.
And I've got to say, I said this on Polite Society Monday evening. Mary's story is one of the most powerful arguments against gun storage laws that can be made. She was attacked, and if there were gun storage laws in effect, she would probably not be here to tell her story.
She is absolutely convinced that she would not be there to tell the story and that her daughter would not be there either.
We're starting to get comments in already. Michael over on the YouTube side says, awesome video. I agree. And if you're watching,
Michael,
if you're
share
impressed
it.
if you're impressed by that video, share that. I will make sure on both the Facebook and the YouTube. Well, the link for the video is a little too long for YouTube, but if you look up the DC Project YouTube channel, it is up there. But please go share that video. That video, I would obviously love all of our videos to go viral, but that video deserves to go viral. I cannot say that strongly enough.
We're so proud of the women from the DC Project and the fact that there are 3 videos that are coming out in this series. And so there are girls behind the scene that helped raise the money to be able to pay for a professional video producer to help us put that together. And so it's a grassroots effort. And so everybody is trying so hard to make that message our message and get it out. So anything that any of our listeners can do to share it with 2 friends, that would be great.
Absolutely. Let's go ahead and get to the news stories for the day. And I do a news search every day, and you actually came up with a story that it hit my radar yesterday, but you came up with a news story. It was down at the bottom, but I moved it to the top simply because this is a Cleveland news station did this, and they were. This is intended to be a softball piece for one guy who happens to be anti-rights, and his platform is defund the police and Black Lives Matter and all this, and yet the piece comes across and almost makes our case for us.
It really does. The headline is, Ohio makes it easier to get firearms despite rise in gun violence. That's the headline that came out of, they say Columbus, but it was Cleveland news that it came through.
Yeah. And one of the things that came out of this article that shocked me, and you and I talk all the time, what shocked me about this one is Ohio, and I wasn't aware of this, made it so that teachers now have to go through 700 hours of firearms training to be able to carry in the classroom.
Let me give you the backstory of the 700 hours. 700 hours is a police academy amount of time. That's what it is. That's the number. And so last year in June, while Rob and I and Robin Sandoval, who you all know, and Charlie Cook from Riding Shotgun with Charlie, were all at an Ohio-based Faster Saves Lives class. We were in there training right along with the school teachers, as the school teachers are learning how to defend the children. The lunch lady, the school administrator, the bus driver, they were all in this class. And we, because it was some extra spots because of COVID, we got to embed and watch it and do it. And while that was happening, over the course of that weekend, the Supreme Court of Ohio made the determination, because there was a set of parents who'd sued, saying that teachers with 20 hours of classroom, of range time and training, plus continuing education, plus their concealed carry, it was not sufficient. So they said that they have to take 700 hours. But think about it. If you're talking about a police academy, how much time is spent doing a traffic stop? How much time is spent writing a ticket? How much time is spent documenting things for a court case? How much time is spent, doing a murder investigation? All
evidence gathering,
all of that. So that's 700 hours for a teacher that is trying to stop an active killer or stop the bleed. is overkill. We'll use the word
to the extreme.
But that's to the extreme. But that's where it went. So right now there's a new bill in the Ohio that's working its way through the Ohio legislature to put it back to the program that Faster Saves Lives had been teaching and teachers had been doing for years. Ohio was the leading state for Faster Saves Lives, for arming school teachers, for training teachers that if you're willing to give your life for your students, how about being willing to defend your life for your students?
Yes, absolutely. The teachers that go through this are a cut above to start with.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody, and Amanda, you've been through this, and everybody I've heard that's been through this training, nobody takes this training lightly.
Mm-mm. Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And I mean, they do some scenario training. You know, you're doing live fire training, you're doing scenario training. You have to not only meet the FBI qualification, but exceed it. So the FBI qualification's got an 80% pass rate. The teachers for Faster has a 90% pass rate. And I think I'm a really good shot. I did not get 100%. Though my cohorts all did, I didn't. But that's, I got a 98. Although I don't think that's a bad score. I was darn. So, yeah. But it's kind of that thing. So let's go back to the story, though. The interesting part was it's a softball piece for a dude that's up in Cleveland that is, he works for an organization. I highlighted some stuff because there's actually, whoever this reporter is has done multiple stories on this dude, and they love him. That's all there is to it. So he belongs to a group of community activists called Black on Black Crime, Inc. And I can only assume that it is intended to stop black on black crime.
Despite the title.
So they continue to demand defunding the police, and they say that the police are not doing their jobs as crime is on the rise. Crime against our children who are getting murdered unnecessarily, most of it in the hands of our own people. Okay, those two comments just don't make any sense. And but they do make for an immediate call for violence, heightened violence to cease. The interesting part is they are asking for a relocation of the funds to go to state and federal policies to address gun violence, gun control, and for the reallocation of funds at the state and federal level to assist inner city black neighborhoods across the country like Cleveland to deal with poverty, racism, gentrification, high unemployment, crime, legal system biases, and mass incarceration. We want crime to stop, but we don't want anybody arrested. We want black on black crime to stop, but we don't want them in our neighborhood to stop the crime. And then they say that they're not stopping the crime, and so because they're not stopping the crime, then they obviously don't want them to stop the crime. I'm so confused.
And I'm going to guess if you looked at his voter registration card, there would not be an R behind this dude's name.
No, R stands for racist.
Oh,
so that would
yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah, because that's in that story too. So, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. No.
Just saying, man. I mean, I think he's sort of onto something, because if you have an organization that's trying to stop black on black crime, that should be in the heart of it. And I think that the statistics are there. So we all want to stop that. We just obviously don't agree with how to go about it.
From every statistic I've ever seen, the way you stop, and it doesn't matter what type of crime, and I'm going to take race totally out of it. The way you stop crime is you take people that commit crime and you lock them up. If
you hold them accountable.
Right. If they if once you let them out, they repeat, then you lock them up for a lot longer. That's how you stop crime. That you make people accountable for their actions, and you allow people to defend themselves. That way, there could be a ultimate consequence should they decide to commit a violent crime.
Magic. There you go.
So I want to get one more comment in here from Michael, going back to that video. Michael says, I think getting that on national airways will be an uphill battle. I would agree with you, Michael, but what we're hoping is that you can help us and others will help us not have to get it on the national airwaves. Just share it, and then naturally it'll go around. And
Twitter, Facebook, YouTube.
Yes. And if it gets 20, 30 million hits, all of a sudden the national media will have to pay attention to it.
Then they'll be like, look at that anomaly. Imagine.
Yeah. Or not, but by the time it gets 20, 30 million hits, it just won't matter.
Right. Yeah.
Let's talk about this next one. New York, I think New York sees the writings on the wall, and they're going to have to issue permits. There's a bill in New York right now where they're trying to make it so that basically everywhere except for possibly a phone booth, and there are still a few of them in the United States. Mm-hmm. I think there may be 2 in New York State, but let me try and find it in here because
they're trying to make carrying a gun anywhere in public illegal, and
even with a permit.
Right, that you can't go to the store, you can't do public transportation, you can't go places where people are. Well, newsflash, people are who's trying to kill you back first. So.
Okay. Simon's bill would bar law-abiding New Yorkers from carrying a concealed weapon on railroads, ride-sharing services, paratransit services, subways, buses, air travel, taxis, or any other public transportation services, as well as in food and drink establishments or at large gathering of 15 or more persons for amusement, athletic, civic, dining, educational, entertainment, patriotic, political, recreational, religious, social, or similar purposes, with or without a permit.
Right. Yeah.
And by the way, have you ever been to a range where there's 15 or more people there?
Yeah. Well, there you go. So the Philadelphia District Attorney has piped in on this too. And here's the statement that he makes that makes so much sense. When people don't feel protected by the police, they may view the risk of being caught by the police with an illegal gun as outweighed by the advantages of the risk of being caught on the street without one. And then he goes on to say we need to recognize that not every person charged with possessing an illegal gun in New York City is a driver of violence. So this is from Manhattan's District Attorney Alvin Bragg. And he said, my dad had an illegal gun because of the crime in our neighborhood.
Yeah.
So, yeah, those when you're facing crime, you really wish you had a gun. When you're someplace safe with a security detail, you're like, nobody needs a gun. Except my security detail. Exactly.
Well, and it's something we're all to agree a little bit to a degree a little bit guilty of, and that is something I think it's called transference. You see something from your point of view and think that that most other people see it your way. Well, right. These legislators don't have a gun, so they think you don't need a gun.
Right.
Well, they have a security detail, so should everybody else has a security detail.
They feel nice and secure and safe. So So they don't even think about the security detail. They just think about how their feeling of safety is.
There you go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And get this one. Thank you, Michael. Shared. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Very much.
So let's see here. What else? Let me go back to show notes here.
Well, I'd like to go to the Madison, Wisconsin story where it looks as if Madison, Wisconsin, or Wisconsin itself, is trying to pass a state version of the PLCAA, Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act. Mm-hmm. And we all saw this situation with Remington just recently, where they didn't go after him on a federal level, they went after him on a state level, and then they went after him on a marketing level.
Right.
And so that's it. It's really funny because the lawyers who were in the Remington case were like, if they'd have held out, they probably would have persevered, but it's a game of blink, and the insurance company blinked.
Well, and it could have been. Let's face it.
That's money.
In today's economy, 73 million isn't the same as 73 million 10 years ago. 73 million went a lot farther back then, but 73 million isn't. It's going to be eaten up by attorneys defending lawsuits fairly quickly. It was probably a dollars and cents decision.
Definitely.
Saying, look, it's going to cost a lot more than that to defend this thing going forward. Let's just cut a check now and be done with it.
But the Wisconsin Assembly, it makes so much sense that they're trying to kind of do an end run so that what happened at Remington does not happen in Wisconsin. And so I think that each of us as Wisconsin passes this, if they pass it, however they pass it, we need to share it with our legislators in our state so that it becomes like constitutional carry, and you have the protection of the federal government, and then you have the protection of the state government.
I know Idaho and Iowa also have versions of this that I've reported on previously. I'm
going to talk to my state rep.
Yeah. South Dakota is wrapping up here real soon. We're going to be done in the next few weeks. I don't know if there's time to get anything forward in South Dakota yet, but I'll be making contact as well. I think this should go out in all 50 states. Now, I don't hold out much hope in California, New York, New Jersey, but I would love to see it.
Yeah, in a few 10 of those states.
Yeah. Yes.
Exactly.
Let's and the other this is kind of fringe, but I think it's important. The Michigan story. There was a guy at a gas station, and believe it or not, there are still people that have to check their oil. Maybe they have an older car, burns a little oil. I had one for a year. With a newer car, you don't have to do it as much, but guy's bending over checking his oil. Police officers cruising by, sees a handle of a firearm sticking out, and then pulls up. Do you have a concealed carry permit? No, it's open carry state. Well, part of your gun is hidden. Guess what? You're under arrest. The guy eventually beats it because, guess what? You could see the gun. It wasn't concealed. You didn't need a concealed carry permit.
If the policeman saw it to do the stop, then it was identifiable and it was visible. So, yeah. Did I ever tell you the story of I was standing there talking, and we were on vacation. I was talking to a guy that had just come walking out of the park where we were, and he's wearing cargo pants. And I looked down, and in the side pocket of his cargo pants, I could see probably just the last inch of the grips of a Walther P22.
Okay.
And if you've seen one of those guns, it is so recognizable, even just the grip frame. And so I'm just standing there, and I'm kind of smirking, and pretty soon I was like, so how do you like that Walther P22? And he, his eyes flew open, and he looked down like is my gun laying on the floor? And it was pretty funny. But once you know, and if you see it, you know what it is. Exactly.
Yeah. I have to admit, very, very early when I first started carrying, I had at that point I was, and I never have been since, I was a big fan of small of the back carry. I've been taught properly since then, but I'm in a convenience store, and I think I'm very well concealed. And the guy walks up to you, how do you like your Glock? And my jacket had come up and over my Glock. And
there you go. Small of the back also means when you stand up, you're sitting in a chair and you stand up, the chair comes with you.
Well, and what and Kathy Jackson taught me this, and I'll never ever forget it. She had me lay flat on my back on the floor. Now get to your gun, because if you're in a gunfight, first it's a fight, right. And fights a lot of the time go to the ground.
What lot of the time, 98%. I think it's a really high number.
It's a high number, and so if you're on the ground, you're on your back. How the heck are you going to get to your gun? Exactly.
Right.
So one last story I want to get to as we get towards the time we have for today. Got this one off of Ammo Land. There is a study that came out. Let me pull this story again. A poll that came out off of Rasmussen of likely voters, and 83% of likely voters say that violent crime is going to be a very important issue in this year's congressional elections. Boy, that doesn't spell good news for Democrats this year.
I'll tell you, it really depends on the city that you're in and the mindset of that news organization. When we're in Florida, every news segment leads with somebody was murdered. Every news segment. And the crime where we are there, comparable to Cleveland, Ohio, is very comparable. Cleveland doesn't lead like that. So some of it has really to do with how is your news written, how do they present it, and what's their goal. And if their goal is to shock you and to scare you, then that would be that organization or that. So different communities are going to be way more fearful than others because of the way they're fed the news.
Yeah. Well, what I'm hoping is that this poll is accurate and that this poll is nationwide, simply because the crime is, we notice a trend in crime even here in Sioux Falls, which is, we're at 200,000. We're not a megalopolis. Mm-hmm. But the larger the city, the more generally blue it leans, and the more the crime problem is. But if 83% of registered voters say crime is going to measure heavily into their decision-making process,
right?
Oh, you know what?
That means it's both parties. That means it's, so there's going to be a lot of things with it. And it's going to be really interesting to watch how this shapes up.
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping it goes in the direction of let's keep criminals locked up. Let's get serious about it, and not, if it's less than $1,000, let's not even arrest them.
I think that pendulum is swung over and it's swinging back, because now, even in this Cleveland story, they are lamenting the fact that the cities that had defunded the police are no longer defunding the police. They've all gone back to funding the police because they realize that in order to have police, you have to pay police. And in order to have the police do what you want them to do, you have to train them. And so if you've got a problem with the police, then taking all their money away limits their training, and then you don't have any say in the behaviors that you're trying to switch or modify, because you don't get to teach them, train them, lead them, direct them. So, yeah.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we are down at the time we have today. We're actually just a touch over, but on our way out, let's clarify this. There is going to be an Eye on the Target radio this weekend, but there is not going to be live video this weekend.
Correct.
You're going down to CPAC, and you're doing some other things this weekend.
Yeah, I'm actually going to Ambassadors Academy as a trainer. And so Western Orlando Firearms Training Academy, the Diana Muller, Ryan Muller, and the Ambassadors Academy teaching Second Amendment advocates how to advocate. And then CPAC. So it's a fun-filled couple days. But that means that the internet is kind of sketchy there. And I don't have a lot of faith that we can be able to do a live video show. And so we're just calling it already.
So, but you are going to be on Friday night. There is going to be a Women for Gun Rights.
There is. It's Liz Conroy from Ohio Ordinance Works. So, yeah.
Very cool. Well, Amanda, thank you again. I love working with you every time I get to.
Well, it's great. I love working with you, Paul. So thank you very much for having me on.
All right. Folks, come join me 5 p.m. Central Time every day this week. And don't forget, on Saturday this week, Mark Walters, Mike Piwowarski, and Rob Morris are going to be doing the Weekly Bullet with me. That's Saturday at noon Central Time. Come join us for any of those.